In this video, I read 4 of the most anticipated romance book releases of 2025 and rank them. I think you'll be surprised by the one I almost DNF'd. Which one swept me away? Will I remember this one tomorrow? Would I beg, borrow or steal this book? Which one would I recommend you need in your great big beautiful life? Now before we start, I may have included some nods to each book in the video. See if you can work out each one for each book. I'm going to do a cut here so I can change. So the first book I read is Swept Away by Beth O'Leary. I just wanted to show you the cover art of the book, Swept Away by Beth O'Leary, and obviously the inside, which is beautiful with the houseboat and the sunset and the sea, and a nice little surprise on the hardcover. And also at the back is the same, I think. I always love these inside covers. So this book focuses on Lexi and Zeke, who after sharing one night together on a houseboat, realise they've actually been swept out to sea, hence the title of the book. Each of the characters have a point of view in the book, and it is told in how many days after they've been swept out to sea, so 1 day after, 2 days after, etc. So you have a bit of an idea of how long it's been for them. So Lexi and Zeke have to try and work together to try and get back to shore. They're basically relying on a stranger, because they don't really know each other. Lexi's a bit tough and commitment phobic, and Zeke is quite sweet, but he does also have a backstory too. Will they be able to stand each other for who knows how long? And will they be able to find a way back to land? What complications do you think might arise in the meantime? So what are some of the good parts in the book? Top of the list for me is Eugene. He's a friend they make whilst they're out at sea, and you might be able to hazard a guess who he is from the cover that I've shown you. It's really sweet, the interactions between the two characters with Eugene. I really enjoyed this addition to the book. Forced proximity. Everyone likes a bit of forced proximity in a romance book, right? Seriously though, how awkward would it be to be forced to rely on someone you've only spent one night with? I do like as well how the author mentions Lexi has trust issues in regards to the situation she's in. It honestly felt quite real as a woman in those circumstances to be concerned, and it did feel really authentic. Now there obviously is an element of danger. They've been swept out to sea. So they're lost at sea and in a houseboat. Houseboats aren't exactly designed for that, so they're worried whether it will withstand how harsh the sea can be, how bad it will get. And with that, the characters have to make some decisions which could really prove to be the wrong decision. Obviously there's a nice potential love story. I like the backstories of the characters. They have added depth and they are both likeable characters in different ways. I like Zeke especially. Now here are some of the parts of the book I didn't necessarily like. You do kind of have to suspend belief a little bit in regards to the boat and a possible rescue. Obviously I won't go into details for spoiler reasons, but I did feel it was a bit unlikely to happen. That was my feeling anyway. But obviously this is only a book and you do have to suspend belief sometimes. It did perhaps feel like the feelings developed a little bit too quickly for me. But I would say, however, that in these type of circumstances, it has been known for feelings to be heightened. Here are some of my favourite quotes from Swept Away. Lexi has so many walls up, it's like entering a maze. And I don't think she knows her way around herself either. Everything you've told me about your life, she says. It doesn't sound like you let people down. It sounds like you've not found people who make you feel like you're enough. If you're the sidekick for long enough, you forget how to lead your own life. I will leave the star ratings and my final thoughts until a little bit later in the video. I'm going to rank them, so, and also just to be a bit of a tease. But in the meantime, have you worked out all the potential nods to the book in the filming vicinity? Some are a little bit more obvious than others. Write in the comments below. In the meantime, however, if you like watching videos of book reviews, please do consider subscribing and give the video a thumbs up so I know you enjoy this style of video. Thank you. So the next book I read was Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. Abby, I have one question for you. Where is Pooter? I see no sign of Pooter. The book focuses on Samantha and Xavier. They first meet when Samantha takes her kitten Pooter to the vet. And Xavier doesn't exactly have the best bedside manner, let's put it like that. When Samantha has to take her kitten back to the vet, they make nice and arrange to go out on a date that night. They really both have a wonderful time, but that is the point when Samantha tells him he might as well forget her because she needs to move away actually. But what happens when neither of them wants to forget? So what are some of the good points in the book? 1, it has a cute kitten called Pooter. I mean, enough said, right? It does also have some other animals too. I mean, Xavier is a vet after all. It has what I would call a swoon-worthy romance, as in you would want it for yourself. This is definitely one of my favourite fictional relationships I've read in a bit of a while. Xavier is grumpy, Sam is a bit sunshiny, but they definitely do balance each other out. And to be clear, Xavier isn't miserable. He's not a miserable person. I really can't stand them, both in books and in real life. But he does have reasons for not exactly being sunny all the time. The book isn't afraid to have vulnerable characters, sad parts, and perhaps unlikable issues in it. Come on, Eileen. If you've read the book, you'll understand. Their first date was so fun, and I would totally want to go on that date. I like the way the author didn't go the way I was expecting it to go. You know, sometimes in the third act conflict, it feels like the author's just throwing things out there just to be an obstacle in the way. It didn't feel like that in the book for me, and I really liked that. I liked the ending of the book. I also really liked the humour in the book. I found it was witty, not too much that you felt it was overpowered and fake, but that it was natural and kind of realistic. And now here are some of the parts I didn't necessarily enjoy within the book. My first thought was, why did Samantha agree to go out on a date when she knows she's moving away? But anyway. There are sad parts, and spoiler alert here because I like to know personally myself. Some of the sad parts do involve the animals. At one point I literally had my jaw hanging open. It was quite a shock. It kind of seemed to come out of nowhere and I wasn't expecting it. There are also some darker or unpleasant themes to the book too. The author herself has written a spoiler page at the start of the book. I haven't included it because I do feel like it is a spoiler and it kind of lets you know the plot lines, but obviously you can read that yourself and decide if this book is for you. Here are some of my favourite quotes from Say You'll Remember Me. I stared at her blankly. This is why I hated humans. They were the worst animals on the planet. I could smell the kitten. It smelled like her. Like flowers. Are you keeping it? I asked. She leaned on the exam table. I mean, yeah, you don't turn down the cat distribution system. But mostly, I liked that he felt turned towards me. Like I was the only thing interesting in this place full of interesting landmarks and people and things. He never once pulled out his phone for anything other than taking pictures. I told him I loved shells and he spent our walk along the water looking for ocean jewels to hand me like it was his new job. I preferred his ice cream more than mine and he switched with me. He wouldn't take no for an answer. When it got windy on the beach, he wrapped me in his towel.
I felt courted.
So have you noticed all the nods to the book in the filming vicinity yet? Put them down below in the comments and see if you're right.
It would have been mine if it hadn't been for those meddling kids.
So the next book I read was Beg, Borrow or Steal by Sarah Adams.
First of all, does anyone else think this lady here looks a bit like Taylor Swift? Or is that just me?
Now the first thing I want to mention is that this is the third book in the When in Rome series. Each book focuses on different characters but in the same family. So if you have read the books in the series before, there are familiar faces, but they are also standalone stories, so you can read them separately. Like I haven't read the initial ones in the series before. This book focuses on Emily and Jack, and you get a point of view from each of the characters. Emily is the oldest female daughter in her family, and she has basically looked after everyone else in her family after the death of their parents. Emily is very regimented, organised sort of person in her life, and she's trying to become a writer as well. Her day job is actually a teacher. Jack returns back to town after a failed engagement. He also has a secret. He is an established writer, but no one knows who he is, so he writes under a pen name basically. Jack has been Emily's nemesis since he accidentally spilled coffee one day on her back in their college days. So what happens when he happens to move right next door to Emily when he returns to town? So what are some of the parts I liked in this book? Ducky the kitten. Come on, by now you must know that if there is a cute kitten in a book, it elevates it for me straight away. But I do love the way that Ducky is such a character in the book. It really made me smile. I tend to like writers in books. I've always been interested in reading and writing. This might shock you as someone who does a reading booktube channel, I know. I liked the writing and the pace of the book. I liked the characters. Once you got past the pettiness in the book, and I'll explain more in the cons of the book a bit later. Once you know more about the characters' backgrounds or, past the surface, I really found the book a lot more interesting. And now here are some of the parts I didn't particularly like in the book. There is a lot of pettiness at the start, and I don't really enjoy that in a book between characters. It always tends to feel a bit contrived because they have deep hidden feelings for each other, and honestly it's quite mean. Especially in this book, it does feel quite childish at the start, particularly from Emily's side. As stated, there is silliness, so you can't take it too seriously, but there are actually more serious issues mentioned in the book, so it does round it out a bit. I would have actually chosen to read the series in order if I'd have known that I would have liked the book. I will definitely get round to reading them, but if you are considering reading the series, I would definitely try reading them in order, unlike me.
Here are some of my favourite quotes from Beg, Borrow or Steal. Whoever said time heals all wounds was a damn liar, because sometimes my heart hurts the worst from memories that time has erased. No one needs me, and when they don't need me, they don't come around anymore either, because I am a utility sponge. I am useful, and if I'm no use to someone anymore, they throw me under the sink. Say it out loud, Emily. Let me inside that brain of yours. I'm afraid to. You'll see how messy it is, how dark in some corners. Sometimes it even scares me in here. When I'm not moving, when I'm not busy, when I'm not needed, it's so lonely.
Have you noticed what some of the nods to the book are? Have you spotted them? Put them down in the comments below. And so on to the last book of the video. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry.
And so the cover art of Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. However, I'm very disappointed. There's nothing here. I was so looking forward to seeing what they had on the inside, and there's nothing. Why?
This book focuses on Alice Scott. Alice is a writer and she's trying to prove herself, not only to herself, but to her colleagues and her family. She's come down for an interview with a reclusive heiress to try and get her story. Unbeknownst to Alice, though, she isn't the only writer in the running for the exclusive story. Enter Hayden Anderson. Hayden is also a writer. He is a Pulitzer winner with experience writing a similar famous person's story. So he obviously has the upper hand on Alice. Or does he? Margaret Ives is the heiress in question, and she pits both the two writers against each other. She offers to pay them for a month to see which one can persuade her that they are the best person for the job, to tell her family's scandalous story. But is Margaret being 100% truthful with either of them? And what does she really want from them both? So what are some of the good parts in the book? You have the grumpy sunshine trope. Hayden is the grump and Alice is the sunshine. But to be honest, I wouldn't say Hayden is actually that grumpy for a long period of time. I liked the potential romances, not only between Alice and Hayden, but between Margaret and someone in her past. I found some of Margaret's history interesting, especially the more recent parts. It's also a bit of a mystery as well as a romance. You aren't sure if you can trust Margaret. You don't know whether she's telling the truth or holding information back. And now some of the parts I didn't necessarily like about the book. There is a lot of talk about how Margaret is being evasive. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know it's understandable in the circumstances, but it kind of felt very annoying how often it was either mentioned or implied that Margaret was being evasive. I was seriously bored at points in some of Margaret's family stories. It felt like there was too much detail in some areas, like her great-grandfather's, whereas not enough in people like Margaret's her own story or the more recent times. It felt like it was trying to be a lot of different genres at once, but not really excelling at any of them. It could have done with more romance, in my opinion. The mystery could have been done a different way to make it more interesting. Just saying she's been evasive doesn't make it that mysterious, for example. It also felt like it was a bit literary fiction at times. The book just didn't really gel together for me, personally.
Here are some of my favourite quotes from Great Big Beautiful Life. The only way to get a person's full, unfiltered story is to let them tell it to you when and how they want. The best stories are born when the words slip effortlessly from a subject's lips, rather than being painfully cranked out of them bit by bit. When you come from a family like mine, you're a part of a whole, like one square in a quilt. Anytime you try to pull in a particular direction, there are hundreds of other squares to resist, to pull you back. What do you think he should have done? She turns the full force of those shining blue eyes on me. For the one you love, anything. You unmake the world and build a new one. You do anything to give them what they need.
Have you noticed any of the nods to the book yet? Put them down in the comments below. So now on to the ranking of the books in my personal opinion. So the book in last place, or 4th out of 4, is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. Honestly, I actually feel quite bad for putting it 4th, but let me explain why. I felt like it had potential to be a really interesting book, but it was let down with the meshing together of what felt like loads of different genres, and they just didn't gel together. I did like the romances, but I wanted more of them. Some of the Ives family history was interesting, but some of it just was so boring, and it felt like they went on for a really long time. I genuinely almost DNF'd it because it was just that boring. I'm sorry. The only reason I kept reading it, if I'm perfectly honest, was I felt to myself, I can't DNF an Emily Henry book. And don't get me wrong, I'm glad I finished the book, but if a book makes you feel that way, it's not great, is it? There was a long section about some of Margaret's family, and it felt like it went on forever. But the more interesting stuff about her family, for example, Margaret's own story, didn't feel like it went in depth enough. The mystery also didn't feel that mysterious. It mainly consisted of Margaret appearing to be evasive and just not telling the full story straight away. I wasn't even overly bothered about the mystery when it was revealed. Overall, whilst there were definitely good parts within the book, this is the third book of Emily's that I've read, and unfortunately this is definitely my least favourite. I rated the book 3 stars, which, although it's not a bad rating, it's quite low in comparison to the other books I've read of Emily's. So now on to book number 3, or third out of 4 books basically. Beg, Borrow or Steal by Sarah Adams. This is my first book by Sarah that I've actually read, but I do have some of her other books on my bookshelf to read. So I wasn't exactly sure what to expect. I found the start a little bit over silly and petty for my taste personally, but once it got past that initial stage, it got better. You get to know the characters on a deeper level, and the book isn't afraid to touch on some more serious subject matters. It had that real small town vibe where everybody knows everybody else, and it definitely really suits the story. I rated the book 3.75 stars and would actually be happy to read more of Sarah's books. So the next book is second on the list, or runner-up if you want to put it like that, and that book is Swept Away by Beth O'Leary. I've always really liked Beth's writing in all of her books, but not all of the stories have been my favourite. Overall, I really enjoyed reading the book and I flew through it. It has a sweet potential love story, elements of danger, what felt like real hard decisions to ensure they survive, and there's more to the story as well. It felt like a bit of a different read and I really enjoyed that. Also, I think people's favourite book is probably The Flat Share by Beth, but I think this could be a contender for the top spot for me. I rated Swept Away 4.25 stars. And so, on to the top read of the Romance Showdown. For me, it had to be Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This is the first full book of Abby's that I have read. I have read The Full Risk, which is only a novella, but I absolutely loved it. So I definitely had pretty high hopes for this book. Overall, I seriously enjoyed reading the book. I found it was funny, witty, to the right amount. I loved the relationships and how they interacted with each other. But then it was also balanced with hard real-life truths and shows not everyone's perfect. This is one of my favourite relationships I've read in a very long time. And I also really like the individual characters in the book as well. It has left me excited to read the other books of Abby's that I have on my bookshelf. I rated the book 4.75 stars. I have to say I was really excited to read the books in this video. Romance does tend to be one of my favourite genres in books, and I was quite surprised with how I felt about some of them. Have you read any of the books in this video? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And now I'll tell you the nods I did for each book in the video. So first of all, we'll do the universal ones. We've got the seaside, because most of them are set in summer and have the sea involved at some point. I've also got a heart ring, heart necklace, and heart earrings for love, romance. This is what the video is all about, right? What else have we got? We've got this, it's just got love hearts on. And I think that's all of the universal ones. In Swept Away we have a boat, a leather jacket, Lexi wears one in the book, a bird for Eugene, and yes, I know Eugene is a seagull, but I didn't have one, so this was the best I could do. In Say You'll Remember Me, we had vet stuff like a thermometer, we had a shirt, I was wearing it to kind of look like what vets wear, the tabard or whatever you call them. I had animals like the cat for Pooter, such a cutie pie. I also had the dog, because they have a dog. Cherries, you probably wouldn't have known that was in the book unless you've read the book. Xavier mentions them. He says, I nodded at the cherry in my glass. You want mine? You didn't like them, she asked. I did like them. I handed her the toothpick anyway. I liked her more. So the nods to Beg, Borrow or Steal are well, books, because they're both writers in the books. The tools for the renovations in the book of Jack's house, also a house for the house. I also had a kitten for Ducky. Oh, I really did like Ducky in the book. And for The Great Big Beautiful Life, I had the boat, there's one mentioned in the book. The crown, because Margaret is an heiress, and yes, I know, that's not quite the same thing as royalty. Okay, I just wanted to wear the crown again, alright? I also forgot to mention books, because they're both writers, and the house, because Margaret lives in a big secluded house. So did you get them all right? I hope you have enjoyed the video, and if you have, you know what to do. Thanks everybody, goodbye.